And good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table, heard every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. here on WBISLP, Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM. You can also catch us on YouTube, Facebook Live, Roku, and GPAC 23. Those are the other formats. We'd like to say good morning to everyone listening and watching, and hope that today's show will bring you some information that will be of some service or help to you as you start or begin your week, and pass along whatever thoughts and information that are positive to someone else that you run across throughout your daily travels. Our show today, being that school has resumed for many of the secondary schools, elementary, middle, high schools, they've started back. Colleges will be starting back, I believe, within the week. So what we wanted to bring to you today was an acronym that we throw around a little bit. For those of you who know it, for those of you who attended college, it's called the HBCU. HBCU. And HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. And in America, there are 104 historically Black colleges and universities throughout the country, from the East Coast over to Oklahoma. The HBCUs were founded on the belief that every individual deserves access to a college or higher education. And the Higher Education Act of 1965 was amended and defined an HBCU as this: any historically Black college or university that was established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of Black Americans, and that is accredited by a nationally recognized accrediting agency or association determined by the Secretary of Education. That's what the HBCU means. That's what it stands for. And for the millions of African Americans who have graduated from an HBCU with pride, hopefully, if you're watching and can catch the show, you can take some things from this. And for those of you who did not, this is just some historical information of value to you as you maybe help navigate or direct your child, grandchild, nephew, niece, friend, whomever, who are interested in continuing their education beyond high school. Now, truly understand that not everyone is meant for college. College is not meant for everyone, and not everyone will go to what they call a predominantly white institution, PWI, or major college. So the HBCUs for over almost 200 years have had their place in the building and educating of African Americans here in this country. That needs to continue. We need to continue to support our HBCUs, not just during the football season, but throughout the academic year and beyond. So I'd like to just give you some facts about HBCUs and see if they ring up on your trivia poll, and see if you know any of this information. And if not, well, you know after today. So 3 years after graduation, HBCU graduates earn $10,000 more annually than individuals who only receive a high school diploma. 10,000 on average more, 10,000 more. An HBCU graduate working full-time throughout his or her working life can expect to earn $927,000, almost $1 million. Now, I take task to that because if we were given opportunity to make more six-figure salaries, then you would see that number change. However, since many of the HBCU graduates are under 100,000, somewhere probably between that 60 to 100,000, then we don't have a lot that makes beyond that six figure of 100,000. But nonetheless, we go forward. The average cost to attend an HBCU in 2016-17 was $23,885, compared to 32,951 for a four-year non-HBCU. And HBCUs represent 3% of the colleges and universities in America. 3% of all the colleges and universities in America. And of that 3%, 16% earn their bachelor's degrees, 20% earn STEM bachelor's degrees. So we are definitely making strides, but we got to get, raise those numbers up as we need to. The top 10 institutions where African-American science and engineering PhDs earned are at HBCUs. And then 25% of African-American college graduates got their degree from an HBCU. 50% of African-American public school teachers graduated from an HBCU. 50% of future African-American lawyers graduated from an HBCU. 80% of African-American judges graduated from an HBCU. 38% of all African-American health professionals graduated from an HBCU. And instead of the 20%, 41% of all degrees in the STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, were earned by African-Americans who graduated from HBCU. The value of the HBCU is still very, very relative and important. So don't think you're getting shortchanged if you go to an HBCU, because you will not be. In addition to having gone to a place of pride and tradition, the nurturing and the care of HBCUs to African-American students is like none other that you'll ever see in the college university landscape. There's a nurturing and a caring that you won't see at many major colleges, like you'll see at an HBCU. Now, what was the first HBCU established? What was the first? Do you know? Well, the first HBCU was Cheney University in Pennsylvania, and it was established in 1837. Think about that year, 1837. At the time, it was known as the Institute for Colored Youth, and it opened its doors for elementary and secondary training, which later on became college courses. So when we think about our HBCU's history, 1837 was the first, and it was in Pennsylvania, which tells you that the education and the educating of Black Americans started in the state of Pennsylvania for the most part as it relates to colleges. Reading and writing. Someone has to teach reading and writing. And one of the things I observed is this. If we as a culture don't write books, if we as a culture don't read and write, if we as a culture don't take education as one of the most valuable things we will ever possess in our lifetime, we will be lost. We must teach our children the importance and the value of learning, of getting educated, of reading, writing, math, and science. Because the landscape will change. The opportunities will change based on the landscaping changing because of the testing that goes on for children to be declared eligible to move on in their educational path. Elementary school, they're taking tests to determine if your child can read, write, math, science. Same thing in middle school, same thing in high school. Because when you get to high school, the ACT and the SATs become that standard that our children must apply for, must achieve and exceed in order to move on with their educational careers. Now, again, even though you may not go to college, technical college, 4-year college, 2-year college, whatever, although you may not fit the mode of going to college, here's the thing: reading, writing, educating your mind is what will determine where you go in life. Because people want you to fail. Make no doubts about that. People want you to fail. And the less we educate our children, the more likely they are to fail. And you know what the story is. We know what that storyline is. From the cradle to prison. Because when we fail to take advantage of learning, then we result to something else. And there's been a slogan for many, many years: crime doesn't pay. And you can try it. However, the forces that are behind the the justice system take the task and go an extra step beyond what the normal things are in making sure that people of color feel the pain and agony of being a criminal or committing crimes. Educate yourself and learn what's the best opportunities. There are a lot of ways to do some things. It doesn't have to be criminal, but however, if that's your path, that's your path. And I know to have that kind of path where you're constantly watching over your shoulder, worried about who's going to be after you and things of that nature, that's a path that some people choose because they want what they say is that fast money. And everything revolves around economics. A job revolves around economics. Everything in a capitalistic society revolves around economics. Money. A job equals pay, which means you can purchase things, purchase a home, purchase a vehicle, invest money. Those are the things that you need to survive. Money is that survival. It's like blood in your body. Money is that economic survival. Now, that way I just mentioned about following that path that will cause you some pain, discernment, and problems. Well, I've witnessed many individuals who've used that, and it did not work out too well for them. Teach our children to learn. There's a wealth of opportunity under the umbrella of entrepreneurship for our children if they will just apply themselves to learn to read and write and become educated. The opportunities are vast. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's vast. And if you can find your niche and find a way in and maneuver, you can get there. It's been done. It can be done. We just have to want to do it. And when we do it and work within our culture a little bit strong and better, it can be better. But we've still got some things we have to deal with. But nonetheless, our HBCUs have been a staple to the educating of our people. The stories of some of the schools that have been born from meager beginnings to where they are now. The fact that 54% of our HBCUs receive state funding, which means the state, if you see a college with the word state attached to it, that means it gets funding from the state. If it says A&M, A&I, A&T, that's a state-funded college or university, which means it receives funding from that state in order to keep it vibrant and alive. Aside from that, the other private HBCUs are funded from private donations, funded through churches, funded from wherever they can garner support. It is more difficult for them at times, especially in tough times. Not everyone can afford to go to a private HBCU. And when they do go there and take out the loans, you've heard the horror stories about the loans and how long it takes to pay them back. However, even though it takes some time to pay them back, you still have an opportunity to earn a living, survive, and take care of that debt. It would be very nice if those debts could be minimized. The blessings that a gentleman did for Morehouse College a few years back, within the last 5 to 6 years, where he blessed a graduating class by paying off all their student loans so that they started life. See, because life basically really starts at age 22. For the most part, it starts at age 22. So finish high school at 18, 4 years in college, maybe 5, but primarily starts at 22. After that, if you don't have any debt, great. If you have that student loan, then you're already in debt. So he wiped away that debt so that they could start from zero, get that job, and not have to pay one bill. Not have to pay one bill, except the bills they were currently established. A place to stay, their utilities, their gas for their car insurance, and if they do have a car note, the car note. Other than that, they can take that other disposable income and start to, if nothing else, save it and build from there. Now, a lot of times we don't get the opportunity for someone to engage us and teach us about that part of life. We get out, get a job, and as soon as we get done with college, the first call you'll get is from creditors asking you to take out a credit card. Now, granted, having a credit card is important from the standpoint of emergencies. If you have an emergency and you need to take care of something. But again, when we've got someone who can come and talk to us about planning our income and how to make that grow and work for us, we don't get that all the time. And again, we need those type of individuals who understand how investing, how sheltering our money works, because as a single individual, beyond getting that paycheck, the United States government is going to take a chunk out of your paycheck called taxes. So you got federal income tax, then you got your loan. So those two things alone can put a hefty dent in your monthly paycheck. However, finding ways to shelter your money, to invest, to save, we need more individuals. That's almost like when you graduate from college, you need to sign up with this business that's going to work to help you put that money aside. And if our colleges would maybe institute a situation where when you graduate, or before you graduate, how about that? 30 days before you graduate, we're going to bring in several companies, several individuals, and talk to you about getting your job, getting your money, and how to make it work best for you before you end up investing it in materialistic things. That, to me, would be a very great thing to do for our graduates. The more we do that, the more economical clout we can have, the more we can do for self, the more we can do with each other. Because as the great James Brown said back in the day, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door. I'll get it myself. When we can do for self, we will be a lot better off. I tell you, being an entrepreneur is a great feeling. It's hard work. It's tough, but it can and must be done. A lot of entrepreneurs out there are service oriented businesses, and we see them in our communities on a weekly basis. But there are other services that we can make happen, that we can invest in. We have to do a better job. And I'm happy that I was challenged recently by someone who went to an HBCU to give back, because a lot of times we don't give back. I'm guilty of that, or I was guilty of that. However, I had done some things for my alma mater to try to give back through my entrepreneurship. But now, with an opportunity to give back on a monthly basis, it's not difficult. Every graduate from an HBCU has at least $20 every month that they will throw away on something. I guarantee you, if you took that same $20, gave it back to your alma mater, who you say you love, who you like to brag about, who you can't help to go back to homecomings, all these emotional feelings that we feel for our HBCUs. If you took $20 that you throw away, let's admit, let's be honest, you probably throw away $20 a month. I mean, if you go out to eat 2 times, 3 times in 1 month, that's $20. So instead of doing that, do something different. If you took that $20 each month and earmarked it and gave it back to your alma mater, not one time, each month, for a minimum of 10 years, a minimum. If everyone from these Black colleges did that, I guarantee you will see a difference in what happens with our colleges and universities. $20 is not that big of a deal. So you give it to someone else for something else and don't think about it. The gas where you buy it to put in your car, that goes to a company that you don't care. You don't question that. The food that you eat, the things that you buy, clothes, the things that we as African Americans have no production of. We don't produce it. We're consumers. We're not producers. We don't have many farms, so we don't produce the food. We don't have the gas stations. We don't run the service stations like you see in our own communities that are run by foreigners. So if you just took that $20 every month for a minimum of 10 years, which is 120 months times 20, that would be $4,400 in 10 years that you gave back to your school. Now, individually, that sounds like that's not a lot. But if 1,000 graduates of an HBCU did that over 10 years, that's $4.4 million. Just like that. And let's just look at it as a way to give back. Here's the other thing. It's tax deductible, so you can write it off on your taxes. So the value of it and the importance of it is minimal compared to what we do. Think about it, pass the word along, get committed to giving back. I had to get that lesson very recently in a challenge. So I challenge each and every one of you who are watching the Kitchings Table today here on Awesome Radio, WBISLP 106.9 FM. I challenge each and every one of you who went to an HBCU, or even if you didn't go to an HBCU, but value the fact that our Black colleges and universities are relevant to the education of our children going forward. I challenge each one of you to make a commitment to give $20 a month for the next 10 years to one of those colleges and see what happens. You throw money away anyway, so why not just throw $20 to a Black college? When you get asked to tithe at your church, and I'm not trying to confuse the issue. I'm just saying, if you know how to tithe, you know how to tithe for your college. If you can tithe for your church, you can tithe for your college. It's not that big of a deal. $20 every month for the next 120 months. If you do that, our HBCUs will continue to have a legacy that will thrive, survive, and provide education for our children who need it, who won't be going to a major college, and value what they will receive in that nurturing environment at a HBCU, because it's nothing like going to a HBCU and having that pride in self. Now, when we talk about the number of Black colleges and universities throughout this country, I went to breaking it down by state, because the list, instead of reading off the whole list of 104, I figured I'd break it down by state. And that way, if you live in a particular state, you can figure out where you might want to give or donate your money. So, state by state, I'm going to give you a breakdown of how many Black colleges or universities are in the state by state breakdown. And you do understand that most, probably 90% of all the Black colleges in America are in the South. In the South. So from Virginia to Florida to Texas, most of the Black colleges are in those states. So I'm going to give you the breakdown. Starting with Alabama. There are 14 Black colleges and universities in Alabama. And of that, there are 2 state or public universities, Alabama A&M, Alabama State. The rest of them are private, or they are technical or theological schools. I'm going to break down the other ones as I go along. 14 in Alabama, but 2 of them are public universities operated under the state of Alabama. 4 years. Arkansas, 4 HBCUs. Delaware, just 1, Delaware State. The District of Columbia, the University of the District of Columbia, and Howard University. Now, Howard University is a very unique university based on its funding and its governance, if you would. I'll get to that in a moment. Florida, there are 4. There is only 1 state university in the state of Florida for Blacks. Next, we have Georgia. There are 12 HBCUs. Kentucky, 2. Louisiana, 6. Maryland, 4. Michigan, 1, but it closed, so we're not going to count that one. Mississippi, there are 7. Missouri, there are 2. North Carolina, the great state of North Carolina, where this radio station originates, is 12. And I'm sure many African Americans who live in the state of North Carolina who did go to college probably will say they went to an HBCU, or their parents went to an HBCU. There are 3 in Ohio, 1 in Oklahoma, 2 in Pennsylvania, and ironically, Lincoln University of Pennsylvania and Lincoln University of Missouri. Same name, 2 different states. South Carolina has 8. Tennessee has 7. Texas has 9. There is a black college university in the University of the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas and St. Croix. The state of Virginia has 6, and West Virginia has 2, and both of them are state universities. So that's a breakdown by state of the HBCUs in those states. Now, by enrollment, the largest HBCUs, and it's one on here that I had never heard of until it popped up on my research, and it's called St. Philip's College in San Antonio. The top 5 HBCUs with the largest enrollments: North Carolina A&T, home of the Aggies in Greensboro. St. Philip's is 2nd. Howard University is 3rd. Prairie View is 4th, and Florida A&M is 5th. North Carolina A&T, since 2014, has had the largest enrollment with over 13,000 students enrolled in the 2021-2022 school year. 13,000 students, a phenomenal number. 13,000 Black educated students at the next level of education, which is in college. So as you can see, the value, 13,000 students value going to North Carolina A&T. 10,000 Florida A&M, 10,000 Prairie View, about 10,000 at Howard. They value the legacy and tradition and the history of going to these colleges, where I believe not only is it the nurturing, but going to a place where you don't feel like an odd wheel, where you feel like, if you grow up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, or all Black neighborhood, there's certain things that come with growing up and going to school with people who look like you. So you continue that. And it becomes not only a prideful thing of HBCUs, it's almost like a sorority / fraternity when, the students go to these colleges, because you further strengthen who you are, your resolve of being an African American or Black person in the United States. So think about that. And again, I challenge each of you to donate a tax-deductible gift of no less than $20. No less than $20. If you can do more, do more. But you all have a $20 bill with Andrew Jackson on it for now that you can send to your college or university that you believe in so deeply. $20 a month for 10 years, 120 months, minimum. A minimum of 20 for a minimum of 120 months. Make a difference at your college. Do the best to make that college grow. Don't worry about all the other factors. You give your money to other businesses in America, whether they're good, bad, indifferent. You buy gas, you buy groceries, you spend everywhere else. You don't ask questions about where they put the money. If you go to the service station and put some gas in your car, do the research and find out how much of your gas money is contributed to an HBCU. And when you find out it's not a lot, do you get angry? Like you'll get angry if the HBCU got your $20 and something happens and it's not spent the way you think it ought to be. You want to challenge that, but you don't challenge that company where you're buying that gas from. What is the difference? So Let's stop having these false narratives. Have some pride. Give back monthly for 120 months over for $20 and see what happens. So now we're going to move to our pantry segment here on the Kitchings Table here on WBISLP, Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM. YouTube and Facebook Live are places you can catch us, also on Roku and GPAC if you can find us. So our pantry segment today deals with one organization that has taken on the challenge of making sure that the survival of our Black colleges and universities continues. Because when these doors to these institutions of higher learning start closing down, some people will not get an education. So continue to support the UNCF. And again, if you want to give the UNCF $20 a month for the next 10 years, give it to them. Give it to somebody. The UNCF, the United Negro College Fund, and it helps 37 HBCUs as their network of member institutions. It provides a range of support that enables them to keep their academic programs strong and their tuitions affordable. As a result of this support, member institutions have educated more than 60,000 students each year, and have produced more than 500,000 graduates with the help of UNCF. The economic impact of member institutions extends beyond just the students they educate. So let's talk about some of that, the UNCF and what it does. In total, the nation's HBCUs generate $14.8 billion in economic impact annually. $14.8 billion. That's equivalent to a ranking in the top 200 of the Fortune 500 list of America's largest corporations. Collectively, that 4.8 billion represents one of the, if you put it in the numbers of the largest corporations, top 200. These institutions generate 134,000 plus jobs for their local and regional economies. And that's the equivalent to the number of jobs provided by Oracle, one of the nation's largest private employers. And here's another fact. The 50,000 plus HBCU graduates in 2014 earned $130 billion, or can expect at that time projected to earn $130 billion over their lifetimes. $130 billion. That's 56% more than they would have earned without a college degree. So the United Negro College Fund, relevant to most of the private Black colleges in America who do not get state funding, they are relevant. Every year they're out raising money. Every year, once upon a time, I'm sure they still do it, they would have a phone-a-thon, a telethon. Lou Rawls, a great singer and performer, used to headline. It used to be called the Lou Rawls UNCF, telethon, and it raised millions of dollars. So for people who have extraordinary amounts of extra income, if you are a millionaire and you gave 5% of your million to a HBCU every year, $50,000, how much better would those schools be? How much better off would they be? It's there. The money is being made. We just don't always choose to give back. So When we talk about our HBCUs, the number one private HBCU in America is Spelman College. The uniqueness of Spelman College is one of only two that I'm aware of. It may be a couple of others, but two that I know of, colleges for Black females only. The other is Bennett College in North Carolina. But Spelman College in Atlanta is the number one private HBCU in America. Now, when we talk about Howard University, and Howard University is very, very, very unique from this perspective. Howard University is not in a state. Howard University resides in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is not a state, but it is where the capital of the United States is. They do not have representation in Congress. However, the city of Washington, D.C., and then the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is the federal part that I'm speaking of. So Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America, a very wealthy city, and the surrounding areas that make up Metro Washington, D.C., on both sides, in both the state of Virginia, and the state of Maryland, Prince George County, I believe that's correct, the wealthiest county in America, right outside of Washington, D.C. and the District of Columbia, the wealthiest county. So Howard, founded back in the mid-1800s, I didn't write that down as to the exact year, but Howard University is a private, federally chartered, historically Black research university. Say that again. Howard University, a private, federally chartered, historical Black research university. The difference is federally chartered versus state chartered. A private Black college that is chartered federally. And to me, what that says is they get funding through federal sources. So Howard, known for research, has a medical school, have a law school. They've been a rock for our Black communities and been a rock in our HBCU communities. And the graduates there have gone on to become very solid citizens, doctors, lawyers, and other professions. So when you go to Howard, some equivalent Howard as being the Black Harvard. I'm not going to fight that, because for what Howard is and has done, they continue to do a remarkable job of educating those Blacks who choose to go there to get an education. So Howard, doctoral, produce PhDs, physicians, lawyers, as I said, judges. They now credit themselves with having the first vice president of the United States who attended Howard University. So Howard has done its thing, and it continues to do it. And other Black colleges and HBCUs do their thing. So it's out there for us to do. We need to do that. keep that pipeline strong and healthy. Now, of the 104 HBCUs, I identified 4 that were theological colleges. The Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta and the Johnson C. Smith Theological Seminary in Atlanta. The Hood Theological Seminary in Salisbury, North Carolina, and the Payne Theological Seminary in Wilberforce, Ohio. Basically, church institutions where you go get, and that's pretty much your master's degree. You go to a theological school, your master's and PhD. Now, recently, and this was a surprising note, there have been some community colleges and technical colleges that have come on the landscape of higher education in the United States that have been identified with HBCUs or being an HBCU, technical or community colleges. And there are 3 in Alabama, 2 in Mississippi, and 1 in South Carolina. The J.F. Drake State Technical College in Huntsville, so you hear state behind that, means state funding. The Shelton State Community College in Tuscaloosa, and the Lawson State Community College in Birmingham. Those 3 community colleges in Alabama. Coahoma Community College in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and Hinds County Community College in Utica, Mississippi. Now, Hinds would probably be the same county where they have Jackson State, but those are 2 community colleges. And then the Denmark Technical College in Denmark, South Carolina, which is not too far from Orangeburg, which is where South Carolina State and Claflin are located. South Carolina State is the state college and university, the lone state college and university in the state of South Carolina. And right next door, and I mean literally, there's a gate and a wall that separates those 2 campuses. It's Claflin College. Just like Benedict and Allen in Columbia, where there's just basically a wall and a fence. They're just that much connected in South Carolina. So if we have community colleges coming about, and if we have technical colleges coming about to teach technical aspects, wherever we can get the academic learning and the academic knowledge to empower us so that we can make a better life for ourselves, then we need to go to those schools and learn and get that valuable knowledge. Nothing like having knowledge. Now, when we talk about knowledge, and